I don't know where the Mets are They need help in the pitching. They need help in the hitting. They need help pretty much everywhere. But it's just it's the way these teams were built. And I keep saying that you have to go in with a certain amount of guys that can get on base, high on base percentage. You got to have guys that can hit with runners in scoring position. Was looking at statistics last year. The two best teams hitting with runners in scoring position this year are Rangers and the Rays. Texas Rangers are hitting 302 with runners in scoring position. The Tampa Bay Rays are hitting 288 with runners in scoring position. Nowhere to be seen. And the Red Sox actually are doing quite well. They're hitting like 270. Yankees and Mets. Why don't we get guys that know when I need to move runners or I need to hit sacrifice flies or I got a guy on second with 2 outs that I can get a base hit when necessary? And I'm not putting all of this on the players. I think some of these guys are limited by their abilities. And, when you call up too many young guys at the same time or you have too many old guys in the lineup that you're forcing to use, that's why last night the Yankees started a different guy at third base because now they're realizing Josh Donaldson's not going to get us to the postseason. So we either make some moves right now or we're going to be in trouble in a month. And I think by the end of July, going into August, when you have 60 days basically left in the season and about probably 50 games, you got to be within striking distance of the wild card. Just to get into the wild card. And I think right now the Yankees have a good chance to get into the wild card, but with the way this lineup is built, and Stanton is just so tired. Dude, stop with that closed stance. It hasn't worked in 3 years. You haven't been, exceptional in 5. But whoever showed him that stance should be like, listen, as your hitting instructor, I see you're the only guy in baseball that has that closed stance. Most guys, they're turning the front toe in, and they don't have the high leg kick any longer, but they're still spread out, and they're still able to generate enough torque with their hips. This guy is not. He's not the same guy. So I just think you have a lot of guys that are built the same that are playing for the Yankees. They put a lot into their younger stock. They didn't come through. Volpe and Cabrera, 95 games into the season, maybe the future, but they're not now. And I think now you're starting to see them rearrange guys on the field like a chessboard that they're saying, you know what, we need some guy. If you were to get Juan Soto, if you were not just Bellinger, he'd be a good piece. I'm not saying he wouldn't be.
Bellinger fits the mold of swinging for the fences,
that's right,
man.
And, here's my thing. He's playing in a division which is not the American League East, and it's not the National League West. How good is the National League West the last few years?
Yeah.
Pretty solid.
Yeah.
The pitching's pretty solid. And the real 1, 2, 3 starters, main guys for the Giants, the Padres, the Rockies are pretty good. Facing guys like that from these teams that you've been facing, even the Diamondbacks this year, their frontline guys, they would be abusing Bellinger. But the guys in the National League Central, a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it has to do with where he's hitting, who he is in that lineup, as opposed to where he was with the Dodgers, where he seemed to get picked on a lot more. Right now, you're seeing the Yankees and the Mets lineups being abused because of their star power, but because of their lack thereof around that star power. Without Aaron Judge in the lineup, these guys don't see the same kind of pitching.
Well, I have a guy in mind for Yankees, if we just want to start there, because I'm putting together a shopping list of what's available in the grocery store right now, and I'm over there in the Cardinals department and in the third base section. That Nolan Arenado looks like if the money works out, he could be exactly what you're talking about. A guy who can hit, not just swing away, hit.
You're talking Hall of Fame third baseman, man,
and
would
play
fit
the
in
corner
perfectly, and he is nails. No, you talk about Scherzer and attitude to the Mets. That's what Arenado was to the Rockies and the Cardinals. They even talked about it in the All-Star game. Yeah, they're like, this guy is all in. He's no nonsense. Even in the All-Star game, Arenado is all business.
Felt
so
that in those
that's
ABs.
a gamer. That's a good choice.
Just the other ones, the other position I could think about just as far as firepower is at the plate. Like, could you go after a CJ Cron or even that Elias Diaz guy from Colorado? Does that add anything? But still, that changes your pitching around because it's a catcher. And, I know that you're not getting a lot of production in the lineup, but those guys have been really good with some.
All you guys were in on Trevino last year?
I
wasn't. Okay, that's why I have a 3-year rule. I want to see greatness for 3 years.
He was an all-star.
A good to above average for 3. That doesn't mean squat. There were 88 all-stars this year. Okay, and there were 33 new ones. And I'm not saying that some of those guys aren't great future players, but even Gary Sanchez. Here's the thing with Gary Sanchez. I always thought he was out of position. He should have been a first baseman or a DH type guy. He never should have been your frontline starter. And then when they started getting in his head about this and that, he couldn't do either well. And listen, they remember Jabba Chamberlain, what they did to that kid's head? Yeah. I mean, they've had certain guys that, with them. Yeah, they have screwed some players up. And we talk about this coaching in every sport. If you're not there to make these players better, what are you doing? Why are you there? Is Aaron Boone making these guys better or worse? Is listening to the analytics people with the New York Mets and Yankees making these guys worse? I just think that these guys have the talent. I just don't think these guys, a lot of them are really good baseball players right now.
The pitching market, I think, is available for all three locals. I see that any one of these guys really working out. The one that I just think the price is really right on, he's serviceable. He needs some big games under his belt, but I like the little German Marquez, again, from the Colorado Rockies department in the trade store. I don't know if that's going to be anything to put people over the top. I just think the price is right and he can fit into some rotations. I got a couple of back end of the staff arms to ask you about. One you know a little bit more about than the other. Amir Garrett, former Cincinnati Red. He was the kid that took on the entire Pirates
team. He's a good bridge. Good bridge. He's a good
I'm not saying closer.
No, he's certainly not closer. I'm telling you what. Did you see Aroldis Chapman last night?
And there's my next one that I'm going to bring up.
No, he's not getting traded. He's on the Rangers. Dude, he's throwing 102 last night. Hardest pitch by a Ranger in the StatCast era.
He didn't look good for the Royals, but
because he wasn't motivated.
He had some gas in
loves
the
the big time. Was he motivated for your Cubs in 16?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so that dude likes to be motivated. He likes big games, closers, love pressure situations, wasn't getting a lot of high leverage. I don't even know what that means. High leverage situations with the Royals, but he goes to the Rangers and, man, this is a great team, dude.
Just saying it's scary right now what they're doing.
Dude, they like I said, man, you're hitting 300 as a team with runners in scoring position. Bruce Bochy is just preaching, guys, you ain't nothing unless you get a ring. You ain't nothing. You're here to win rings. So, I think you have the right message being sent in Texas. They put their money behind it. I think Texas is a big player. I think the Astros are a big player. Right now, some of the things that I'm seeing, the same things that you're seeing, Stroman to the Astros, Stroman to the Rangers because of DeGrom. Guys like that, veteran pitchers like that, or Paxton, or any of these other cats that may not be my future and coming to the end of their path with certain teams. That's the guy. That's the guys you want to go after. Eovaldi was such a great pickup for the Rangers because he's just a rock. It's like Plymouth Rock landed in Texas.
Zach Greinke.
I don't think he's as good as he used to be.
He's 39 years old. He's on the Royals, so it's tough to look at those numbers.
I'd like to see him go to a playoff caliber team, though.
That played for a lot of them.
If you like him, let him go. Trade him for a lower level minor leaguer or some cash. Then, but let Greinke go. Get 2 more months. He's got 2.5 months left in his career.
Yeah.
This guy's a Hall of Famer in my book.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just hanging out in the Royals department right now, and the they got.
Where is that? That's in the 50% off department.
Yeah, it's in the bargain.
Damn.
Area. Ryan Yarborough is going to be a little bit of a bargain, I would say. He's coming back after taking one to the face and a little line drive back. He looked good in his first couple of outings. Price is going to be right.
Tanner Houck is coming back. I love Tanner Houck's stuff. I think right now, I don't know if the Red Sox are interested in dealing some of these pitchers, but they have some guys that if you want to go young and in the future because you maybe don't like something. I'll tell you what, Costas is on the up.
It's going to be fascinating to watch
uptick
the next couple of weeks with the Boston Red Sox. Really,
it is interesting because you had teams like the Pirates, you had some of these other teams that were kind of good 2-month teams this year. And now you're starting to look at who we can pick off. I think there's not that many left on the Oakland Athletics to pick off. But I'll tell you what, a team that I would look to be a seller right now is Seattle Mariners. That team didn't work out the way you thought.
Not at all.
And so there's a couple of guys on there that if I wanted some, you're not going to get obviously Rodriguez, but there's some other guys in that locker room that I might want to take out of that rotation.
What do you know about the Brewers organization and what they're trying to do this year? I mean, they have been so close in the last couple of years. They've got Christian Yelich, who looks like he's getting back.
He's on the
form.
uptick, absolutely.
But you're not going to have him that long. And how long is he going to be to form of Christian Yelich? It would seem like they got a 2-game lead over your Reds right now. It would seem like they're going to be cruising for at least the division championship there, and it would seem like they're going to be a player when it's all said and done. Soto, Bellinger's probably out of the question, but who knows? The Cubs might trade him to the Brewers. They're that stupid. Goldschmidt as well could be out of the question, but who knows? The Cardinals could trade him to the Brewers too. They're that stupid. Just those 3 guys don't fit in the equation, in the Yankee equation, I don't think. Maybe Soto, Bellinger, we'll see. In the Red Sox equation, I don't think. They're just worth too much more money than what they want to pay. In the Mets equation, I don't know where you put any of those guys. I'm sure they'd find a spot, but still, it doesn't look like there's enough ball to go around in that lineup. But for the Brewers, it looks like they could land one of these big guys and actually be players when it's all said and done in the playoffs.
The Brewers have set their team up to be able to accept somebody with a huge price tag. I don't think the Cardinals would trade with them in the same division.
Right.
I don't think the Cubs would trade with them in the same division, unless it was maybe Bellinger. Because, listen, you're not into him other than the last 2.5 months on that $17 million. So you might say, okay, we'll trade him with some cash and pay back the Cubs some of their losses. But as far as this lineup, Adames was a guy that you traded for a few years ago. You traded away a few other players a few years ago that are now in this lineup. Winker is a guy that came off the Reds a few years ago. And, so when you look at some of these deals that they've made, Rowdy Tellez came from the Blue Jays a few years ago. They love to do what the A's did. Remember the A's? We talked about Matt Holliday and guys like that. Remember when they traded some of these guys, went to the A's, then the A's Billy Beane would quickly turn around the next year and then trade them for 3 more guys? And he kept doing that it was like a cycle that he was cycling out these players and getting his minor leagues some players as well as competing. I see the Brewers are like that. The Brewers like to compete. They like to put some good guys on the field. They signing Wade Miley. I think Wade Miley should still be a Red. I think that was a huge loss for the Reds. Julio Teheran was a huge pickup of a guy that nothing ventured, nothing gained, and now this guy's in the rotation again. And he was very valuable for the Braves years ago. So, I mean, a lot of this is retread guys and guys that we think can get us to the postseason. Do I see them as buyers? Only if it's a great situation for them in the future.
That's so sad. I'm sorry.
It is sad.
It's
but
sad.
that you got. Here's the problem, and this is the reality. So many of these teams are making money hand over fist. Baseball's booming right now. And Major League Baseball is just it's coming in with so much money from all these different facets, streaming rights, Amazon, all these other companies, Apple want to be a part of Major League Baseball, content-wise too. And so Rob Manfred, he's putting so much money in your pocket. Why do I want to give that away? If I can still draw, and Milwaukee's a great draw. You know that. They still sell out and they still get close to capacity regardless of record.
Yeah.
I loved playing there in the mid-'90s. It's still a great destination, and it's a beautiful stadium. But I think a lot of these teams aren't interested in adding a lot of payroll. I was so surprised the Cardinals did it a few years ago, and the fact that the Rockies kicked in $50 million blew our minds.
Arenado.
That they gave the Cardinals $50 million and him to get rid of him. And people lost their jobs because of it, because it's one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. But that just shows you that some teams are like, listen, we're willing to make the deal if the price right. And then you get Goldschmidt. You're given another gift. I think they screwed up by firing the manager, Schilt, a couple years ago. That was a huge boo-boo that they made, because I think a lot of the guys Not that they don't like this guy. I don't think that they really care about the new manager.
Two teams,
his message has to be.
Two teams we haven't talked about that you would think are going to be players, but we just know the organizations, the Rays and the Orioles. Like, they're on top of the AL East, but we don't expect them to make big splashes in any year around the trade deadline.
Don't be surprised, and I'm looking at their injuries right now. Rasmussen is down for 60 days.
The O's are healthy.
They need some pitching. So they just got McClanahan back, or not him, Glasnow back. And so, look for them to either get another bullpen piece, something like that, because they know in the postseason certain pieces mean more to winning than not. And I think they know that bullpen pieces. I honestly think the biggest movers are going to be relievers. I really do.
Yeah.
And solid relievers and guys that are making enough money to where, whether it's the Mets or the Yankees or somebody like that, where I could get 2 or 3 years out of a player for maybe 2 lower level minor leaguers, I'm going to make that trade because, like you just heard with Mike Petraglia, the Reds are suffering in their middle relief. Their starters are able to go 6, which is sad to think that they can't go 7 or 8. But the 7th and 8th inning guys are really stretched thin right now with Diaz as your closer. But those are always big pieces. We did that back in our day. Any team that can pick up pitching at this point in the season, I think that's going to be a huge trade.
The Race Rangers, that could have been the ALCS last night, and that game went exactly what you're talking about. 2 great starters, and it didn't really matter what they did. It was all about 7, 8, and 9.
All about the bullpens. Again, most of these games are going to come down to the bullpens. Even last night, Severino throws a great 6 innings. Okay, 18 outs.
Yeah.
I've got to get the last 12 outs every night in a different manner. I mean, that's why there's 8 guys in a bullpen, but I keep saying this. 50% of every bullpen, most of those guys shouldn't be in the big leagues. And that's what people were barking about 2 games ago, the Yankees losing after we come out of the break. But it's like, okay, look at what you're talking about. Some of those guys probably went into the break 80%, 75%, and you're saying coming out of the break, we need these guys more in August and September. Let's try to save them for that. So it's kind of like the tournament I just did. I was literally limiting pitches on guys because I knew I might have to bring them back 2 days from Friday if I'm in the semifinals and the finals on a Sunday. Think of that right now. You're in the final 75 games of the season, and you're saying I need these guys for the last 50. I have to have those guys healthy for the last 50. So now I'm going to abuse the crap out of some AAA call-ups and some other guys that are my, 4th or 5th option. And it cost me. But that's where I think a lot of these teams are, because our formulas are different today. Our formulas are get 6 innings out of the starters and get 3 innings out of the bullpen out of 8 guys every night. Think of that.
Yeah.
You can't get 9 outs out of 8 guys every night. That's sad where we are as far as the things that are going on in Major League Baseball.